Thank you, and hang in there. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rosie.
Thank you. That's Heather Kennedy in Ottawa. Here's the Prime Minister of Canada.
Taken by the Bank of Canada this morning. Monetary policy is very important, but as the Governor of the Bank has repeatedly said, the most important thing we can do to help people and the economy in this crisis is for the government to take strong fiscal action. So today, I want to speak directly to small businesses and entrepreneurs. I know that for many of you, the past few weeks have been heartbreaking. You've had to slow down your operations. In some cases, you've even had to close up shop for the foreseeable future. And because money isn't coming in, you can't afford to keep your employees on the payroll. These are really tough decisions. Tough because you don't want to let the people go who help you run your company in their time of need. Tough because some of you have built your business over the course of many years, if not decades. And now it seems like this climate of uncertainty could threaten everything you've worked for. I know many Canadians across the country are saddened to see their favorite neighborhood spots closed. These are the places that make our communities feel like home. Our government knows you're really feeling the impacts of this pandemic, especially with the end of the month coming up. So here's what we're going to do to take some of that pressure off. Last week, we had announced that we would cover 10% of wages, but it's becoming clear that we need to do more, much more. So we're bringing that percentage up to 75% for qualifying businesses. This means that people will continue to be paid even though their employer has had to slow down or stop its operations because of COVID-19. We're helping companies keep people on the payroll so that workers are supported and the economy is positioned to recover from this. That is our priority. We will have more to say on this very soon, but I can tell you that this subsidy for small and medium-sized businesses will be backdated to Sunday, March 15th. For people who've lost their job or are self-employed, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit will still be there to help you. We also know that for small storefront businesses, they're struggling with cash flow right now. It's hard to raise money and make money in this climate. So to help you bridge to better times, we are launching the Canada Emergency Business Account. With this new measure, banks will soon offer $40,000 loans, which will be guaranteed by the government to qualifying businesses. The loan will be interest-free for the first year, and if you meet certain conditions, $10,000 of it will be forgivable. Our government will also provide an additional $12.5 billion through Export Development Canada and the Business Development Bank to help small and medium-sized businesses with their operational cash flow requirements. This means that businesses will be able to apply for a guaranteed loan when they go to their financial institutions to get help as they weather the impacts of COVID-19. Lastly, we're announcing that we will defer GST and HST payments, as well as duties and taxes owed on imports, until June. This is the equivalent of giving $30 billion in interest-free loans to businesses. So if you're struggling to get by right now and you have a payment due at the end of the quarter, we're going to give you more time. It will also allow you to keep the money that you would have been sent to the government and use it instead for your immediate needs. With these new measures, our hope is that employers who are being pushed towards laying off people because of COVID-19 will think again. And for those of you who've already had to lay off workers, we hope you will consider rehiring them given this payroll support. Over the coming days, we will announce additional measures to help the most vulnerable: youth, marginalized people, people who live in poverty. We're going to have more news to share with you very soon. Ce matin,
This morning, I want to speak directly to entrepreneurs and small business owners. I know that in the last few weeks, you have been forced to make very difficult decisions. Some cannot pay their employees. Others had to shut down shop. This pandemic has destabilized the global economy, and the climate of uncertainty we see now is of great concern to you. Last week, our government announced a series of measures to help you, but you told us that you needed more. And we heard you. So today, we are announcing additional measures to assist you. Last week, we announced that we would provide a 10% wage subsidy, but it's clear that we must go further. So the percentage will now go up to 75% for qualifying SMEs. That means that employees will continue to be paid even if the business they work for has slowed down or has had to stop its activities altogether because of COVID-19. We are helping employers to keep their employees and support those employees and position the economy to recover. That is our priority. We will have more details on that very soon. But for the time being, I want you to know that this subsidy will be retroactive to March 15th. And for those who have lost their jobs or who are self-employed, the new Canada Emergency Benefit will be there for you. We also know that small businesses have problems with their cash flow right now. It's difficult to get financing in the current climate. So to help you to come through this tough time, we are creating the Canada Emergency Business Account. Through this new measure, banks will soon be offering loans of $40,000 guaranteed by the government to qualifying businesses. The loan will be interest-free for the first year, and if you meet certain conditions, the first $10,000 of that amount will be forgivable. Our government will also be providing $12.5 billion in additional support to Export Development Canada and the Development Bank of Canada to help SMEs with their cash flow requirements. Therefore, businesses can apply for a guaranteed loan through a financial institution in order to be able to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19. And finally, our government is also announcing that people will have until June to make their payments of GST and HST, as well as to pay duties and taxes on imports. That is the equivalent of providing $30 billion in loans, interest-free, to businesses. So if you're having trouble making ends meet because of the pandemic and you need more time, you will now have more time to make those payments. This will also allow you to keep more money to pay for your daily expenses. We hope that these measures will encourage employers who may have been felt forced to lay off their employees to keep them on payroll. And we also hope that if you have already done that, that you will think about rehiring those employees because of this wage subsidy. In the coming days, we will be announcing additional measures to support the most vulnerable Canadians, young people, marginalized Canadians, people who live in poverty, and we will have news for you on that very soon.
I know the past weeks have been really tough. You're worried about what COVID-19 means for your business and for your future. These are uncertain times, but my message to you today is we're going to be here for you. Small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of our economy. You are collectively the largest employer in the country. You support millions of families. You serve our communities, and you make our towns and cities better places to live. Canadians are counting on you, and I am counting on you to come back strong from this no matter what comes next. You're going to get the support you need to help rebuild a more resilient and prosperous economy. So to businesses across the country, please keep your workers on the payroll or think of hiring them back. In the meantime, let's keep listening to our public health officials. Let's wash our hands, stay home as much as possible, and keep a safe distance from each other when we go for a walk or when we have to go to the grocery store. Together, I know we're going to get through this. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. On va maintenant passer à la période des questions. On va commencer au téléphone avec une question avec un court suivi. Modérateur, c'est à vous.
Thank you. Merci. The first question from Teresa Wright, the Canadian Press. Your line is open.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Could you please tell me when you expect the Americans to decide how they will or will not deploy their military in order to assist their border patrol?
As I've said, Canada and the United States benefit immensely from the fact that we share the longest unmilitarized border in the world. We have expressed to the United States that it would be a mistake to position troops near the Canadian border, and we certainly hope that they're not going to go through with that.
Has the government received formal confirmation that the U.S. will not post troops on the border with Canada, or is this still a possibility? We
continue to engage closely in back and forths with the American administration on many, many issues around the border, and when we have more information, we'll share it.
Both Canadians and Americans have a great benefit in the fact that we share the longest demilitarized border in the world, and it is in our interests to continue to have that. That is exactly what we have expressed to the U.S. administration, and this is what we continue to work on.
Thank you. Merci. La prochaine question, Émilie Bergeron, Agence QMI. À vous la parole.
Oui, bonjour, M. Trudeau.
Good morning, Mr. Trudeau.
La PCU, pouvez-vous indiquer si
could you let us know whether some of these amounts will be taxable? And I'd also like to know what more your government can do to help the media during this crisis. We recently saw that they were in difficulty. The Canadian Emergency Response Benefit will be an income replacement measure like employment insurance, and like EI, it will be taxable. However, we will not be taking money off at source, so people will receive the entire amount immediately. And because we have a progressive tax system, we will be able to ensure that the people who need it most will benefit from it at the as much as possible.
Merci. Prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Alex Ballangal from the Toronto Star. Your line is open.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Just with these new measures that you're announcing, can you give us a sense of the cost? And I'd also like to know, given that the budget was originally scheduled for next Monday, I believe, when we're going to see like a fiscal accounting of all these spending measures in a fiscal update or a budget?
We've announced today that we will be supporting small and medium-sized businesses with payroll support up to 75% for qualifying businesses. We know that this is going to be a significant measure of investing in Canadians and in businesses so that we can bounce back from the difficult times we're going through right now, both on the health side and on the economic side. We recognize that these are unprecedented investments in the economy, but we also know that they are necessary. They are necessary because we have to get through these coming months of restricted economic activity where people stay at home and work from home or don't go to work as much as possible, focusing on keeping their families safe. But if we can support businesses to keep that relationship with their employees, to keep being able to pay their employees through this time, we know that coming out of this crisis will be smoother and better than otherwise. That is our focus right now. In terms of accounting, in terms of accountability, we will, of course, as was passed in Parliament earlier this week, be engaging regularly with members of the opposition, with the Finance Committee, and ensuring that people are seeing exactly what we're doing. We know that transparency around the investments we're making to support Canadians is important, not just from a democratic and parliamentary principle, but it's also important in terms of giving confidence in Canadians that this government will be there for them while they do what is necessary to keep themselves, their families, their neighbors safe, and ensure that we can come out of this stronger than ever before.
Merci. Dernière question avec un court suivi.
Thank you. Merci. La prochaine question, Michel Lamarche, TVA Nouvelles. À vous la parole.
Monsieur Trudeau, j'aimerais vous
Mr. Trudeau, I'd like to hear more about today's announcement. Are you in a position to tell us how many SMEs could be helped by this and how many employees? And also how much it will cost. Well, right now we are finalizing the details and we expect to be able to provide all that information by Monday. But I can assure you that whatever initiatives we need to take for PMEs will really help them to keep their employees on payroll, to continue to pay them, even though there's very little work to be done. So, for example, a family restaurant that's been in place for many, many years and has had the same employees for many, many years and have been with them through the good times and the bad times. And now, in the midst of this crisis, they find themselves unable to continue to pay those employees when they need the money most. So we need to be there for them. And yes, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit will help a great many people who need it. But when possible, it is better for everyone that we keep that connection between employers and employees so that people can know that they will still have a job even though they're not working and that they'll be able to go back to that job. But especially, we will all be able to come out of this crisis quickly when the time comes. We need people to feel reassured that the economy will recover and that not only can we keep ourselves safe, but we can also get things back to normal and continue to have an extraordinary country right here in Canada. And that's what we're going to be doing. Now, with respect to the cost, of course, that will depend on the decisions we make with respect to the design of the program, but we can tell you that we will do whatever is necessary to help businesses affected by COVID-19.
We recognize that there's still a little more design work to be done on this, and we will have more on all the details, hopefully by Monday, so people can make those decisions to keep people on the payroll, to even rehire people to be back on the payroll. Because we're thinking about that family-owned restaurant. It's been around for years, had many of the same employees for years, employees who've been there through slowdowns, good times and bad times. And now in this moment of crisis, they're having to lay these people off at their time of need. We know that allowing people to continue that relationship, allow people to continue to feel and to know they have a job, and allow employers to keep supporting those families who work with them is a really important thing, not just for people's confidence, but for the ability of all of us to bounce back strongly from this once we're through it. We need people to be focusing on taking care of themselves and their families and not worrying about what the future will bring. There's plenty of worry for right now in terms of keeping safe. That's why we are focused on being there for you. With the three measures that we're announcing today, with the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, with the payroll support up to 75%, and the significant access to credit for businesses that are squeezed, we are demonstrating that we are there for you to help us through this moment so we can come back once we're all safer, stronger than ever before.
Monsieur Trudeau, en suivi, j'aimerais vous entendre
As a
sur
follow-up,
le scénario du directeur
could you
parlementaire du budget.
comment on the
112,7
PBO's
milliards de dollars de déficit
scenario
pour 2021.
that there would be a
Ça, c'est sans
$7
compter les
billion
dépenses de C13,
deficit
c'est
in
sans compter les mesures
2021,
annoncées
and that's
aujourd'hui.
not counting all the
Qu'est-ce que vous
measures
dites à tous ces
announced
Canadiens
previously
qui
and
voient
announced
le
today?
déficit
What do you say
exploser
to
et
Canadians
qui
who
ont
see the
de grandes
deficit
inquiétudes
exploding and may be very worried about that? Canada was in a very good fiscal position before this. We had the best economic and fiscal position of any country in the world, with a GDP to debt ratio that's very, very low, and which is exactly what allows us to take the necessary measures now, feeling fully confident of our ability to help people in this emergency. This is a completely unprecedented situation that requires that we invest to help people, to help small businesses, to help employers, and particularly to help workers and their families. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are confident about Canada's ability to survive, and we know that if we can come through this difficult period by remaining healthy and doing what we need to do to protect ourselves, we will be able to return to the prosperous economy we had before. But we must ensure that we're there to support each other in these difficult times so that we can rebuild our economy and make it even stronger when this is over.
We know that these are exceptional times that have required exceptional measures of investing to support Canadians, to support small businesses, to support the economy at a time of almost total economic slowdown and shutdown. But we also know that Canada's fundamentals are strong. We have one of the best balance sheets in the G7, which allows us to make the investments we need to keep Canadians focused on what they need to do right now. Stay home, take care of their families, look out for their loved ones, with the confidence that our economy will bounce back strongly. If we make sure that people can do the things they can without worrying about the future, there's plenty to worry about right now, about today. So focus on the things you need to do today and know that your job will be there, that your relationship with your employer continues, that we are going to support you through this time and we can come back stronger than ever before afterwards. That is the responsibility of the Government of Canada, of all governments in Canada right now, and that is what we're focusing on. With the measures that we've announced until now, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, this payroll support to 75%, and the access to credit for businesses to see them through this time. We know we are positioning ourselves not just to be able to do the things we need to do right now to keep our country safe, but we will be able to come back from this stronger than before afterwards.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau, Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada.
Radio-Canada.
Vous avez accès, vous, à des chiffres,
you
à
have
des
access
projections, à
to
des
projections and
scénarios.
numbers and scenarios, and there are people sitting at home right now who are wondering how long they're going to have to stay home. What can you say to Canadians about how long this will take? How long will they have to make economic sacrifices to save lives? Could this last until summer? Well, we're seeing a lot of different potential scenarios. Some are more pessimistic, they're longer than others, but all of this will depend on the choices that Canadians make now and the choices they've made recently and the choices they'll make in the coming days. So if we continue to follow the advice of experts, if we continue to stay home, to limit our travel, to protect ourselves and protect our loved ones, we will be able to come out of this more quickly. Now, what will it look like? How long will it last? We know we're talking about weeks and possibly months. But as we see whether or not we're being able to flatten the curve, if we are able to control the spread of the virus, then we'll be able to predict with greater certainty how long people will be stuck in this protectionist mode. Now, we know that we will have to do everything we can to come through this, and we will be there for as long as it takes.
Obviously, many, many different projections of how long this could last, how serious this could be, how many cases we could be facing. But those projections all hinge on choices that Canadians are making today, choices they made over the past few days, choices they will be making over the coming few days. I am incredibly comforted by the number of Canadians who are taking this seriously and protecting themselves, their loved ones, and by extension, our healthcare workers and essential workers who are so important in this time of crisis. And the measures that we've announced and the measures we're announcing today will ensure that Canadians are better able to do the things necessary to keep their families safe through this difficult time. So we will be able to say more about how many weeks or months this lasts for as we see the impacts of the behaviors that people have engaged over these days. But I am very optimistic that we're going to get through this in the right way because Canadians do what they need to do to be there for each other and to keep us all safe.
Est-ce qu'il faut s'attendre à une mise à jour économique?
Now, should we expect an economic update before a budget, and if so, why? Well, we will continue to be transparent about the measures we're putting forward. We are currently investing and giving aid directly to Canadians and small businesses, and we also need to help some major corporations in sectors that have been very hard hit by this crisis. So we've done a lot, but we still have more to do, and at every step we will be transparent about what we're doing so that people can understand, so that people can have confidence, and also so that parliamentarians can do their job and ensure that the government is doing what should be done to help Canadians.
Glenn McGregor, CTV News. Prime Minister, at a time when you're rolling out all these programs that are going to require Canadians to interact with government, you're also closing Service Canada centres across the country. And I'm wondering why that decision was taken now at this time, and what is your message to people who might have trouble accessing government services, particularly people, seniors, and people living in Indigenous communities?
Over the past years, we have made significant efforts to ensure that what people can access in the physical Service Canada centres is also able to be and more able to be accessed online. As part of the initiative of encouraging people to stay home and work from home, this is something that we realize we can and should be doing. We want to make sure that Service Canada employees are continuing to work extremely hard to serve Canadians, to respond to their needs, and that's why things are going to be done online and through the phone. And we will be making special considerations for people who are particularly vulnerable and have difficulties accessing those services.
We recognize that we need to be able to serve citizens during these difficult times. But for some time now, Service Canada offices have been making those services totally available online or in person. But now that we are asking people to stay home and work from home, we expect people at Service Canada to continue to serve Canadians from home. Of course, there will be additional measures taken to help those who cannot access the phone or online services.
This is your 14th day in self-isolation. every time we've asked you about this, you've referred to doctors' advice. Can you tell us exactly what the doctors have told you about whether or not you have to stay in self-isolation after today?
The doctors continue to tell me to stay to tell us to stay in self-isolation. But at the same time, we're asking Canadians to work from home wherever possible. We're asking people to stay self-isolated as much as possible, to not go out if not necessary, and I am happy to continue to do this. Okay.
I will continue to follow the advice of doctors who are telling me to continue to stay in isolation. But the fact is, we're asking Canadians to work from home wherever possible and not to go out if it's not necessary, and therefore not to put other people at risk. So I'm happy to continue to do precisely that.
Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. Prime Minister, did you or any of your officials know that the U.S. would deport asylum seekers turned away at Canada's border when you struck the deal with the U.S. last week?
The work that we've done to ensure that we are staying true to our values and our principles is an extremely important one. We got assurances consistent with the way that the American border officials have interacted with people who attempt to claim asylum at official points of entry, and we are keeping consistent with the Safe Third Country law.
That doesn't answer my question. It was a yes or no question, but I have to move on because you've also announced this massive wage subsidy today. Can you give us any specifics on what the conditions will be, whether there is a cap, and how many employers or which businesses it will apply to?
As we said, we're going to roll out more details about this between now and Monday as we finalize it, but it's important to send that message right now, that if you're a small business who's facing the impossible choice of laying off long-time employees because there's just no money coming in and you don't know how long you're going to be able to continue to keep operating, we're there to help you out. We will send a 75% subsidy so you can keep those employees on the payroll, so you can continue to support those families who you've worked with for, in many cases, years. And we can continue to hold together those economic relationships that are going to be so important when we come out of this time of trial for Canadians, as we lean on each other and as we self-isolate and as we slow down and almost stop the economy in many ways. We need to be able to get rolling again quickly as possible once this wave passes us through. Our ability to do that will depend on our ability to be confident in our ability to take care of each other while we're doing it. And that's what we are focusing on right now.
Hi, Ashley Burke, CBC News. Prime Minister, there is a lot of uncertainty and unknowns right now, but Canadians are looking to prepare, and they are looking to you for guidance. Should Canadians prepare for another 5 months in self-isolation at home?
As I've said, the extent of and the length of time that we will have to be self-isolating and going through this freezing of economic activity is very much going to be linked to behaviors and choices that Canadians make right now. If people are diligent about self-isolating, about staying home, about not risking contact with others or further propagation of this virus, then we will be in for a much shorter time in isolation than others. But this is why it is so important and why we are impressing upon Canadians the importance of being responsible in your choices right now, washing your hands often, engaging in social distancing, physical distancing, 2 meters apart from others, not going out unless you absolutely have to, and staying at home. If people can do that, and as we are supporting people enough to allow them to be able to do that, we know that this will last less long.
Right, Mullen, Global News. Agriculture groups and others are urging your government to drop the planned increase in the carbon tax as of April 1st. Is that something you're considering?
We know that it is important that we put more money in the pockets of Canadians at this point when they're stressed. Our plan on pricing pollution puts more money up front into people's pockets than they would pay with the new price on pollution. We're going to continue to focus on putting more money in people's pockets to support them right across the country. We know that this is an important measure for the future, and we're going to continue to ensure that we are thinking about the future while at the same time we ensure that people can afford to make it through this crisis in the best possible way.
So yes or no? On carbon tax, will it go up next week?
We continue to make sure that people have more money in their pockets because that is how we designed the price on pollution.
Merci, c'est ce qu'il m'a fait à la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui.
Merci tout le monde.